As Nigeria grapples with the challenges of fiscal responsibility amidst competing demand for public expenditure, a critical assessment of its debt situation becomes imperative for informed decision-making and policy formulation. Experts believe the alignment of fiscal policies with national development goals, the prioritization of infrastructure investment, and the promotion of a conducive business environment are key factors in determining the country's economic trajectory. But what more needs to be done to strengthen the entire economy now, even despite efforts being made by the government? Let's get talking. I'm being joined by the Chief Executive Officer, RTC Advisory, Mr. Opeyemi Agbaje. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. It's good to start the week with you.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be back here.
Yes, it's been a while.
We had a holiday.
Yes, indeed. and during that holiday, a lot has happened.
A lot keeps happening.
A lot is happening and has happened. Okay, yes. Let's start with the policy and the crisis at this crossroad we find ourselves. Yes, let me put it like that. Nigerian economy and policy at crossroads. What is your understanding of how we would have better implemented some of these initiatives of government than it is now?
Okay, so as you may remember, I generally support the policy direction. I wrote an article in which I said I differentiated between strategy and tactics. I think many of us agree with the strategy, but the tactics have been, some of the tactics have been debatable. We recall that we started very controversially with the inauguration day announcement that subsidy was gone. In retrospect, I actually now think that was a good move. In retrospect. At the time, I was very worried that we needed a little more preparation and planning. But today, we might suspect that if the announcement had not been made on that day, it may never have been made. That's in respect of the subsidy and the petroleum subsidy. And you would find that that policy appears to have worked, but for the exchange rates that has then reinstated the subsidy as prices went as high as 1,500, 600, even higher at a point. I think with the benefit of hindsight, we may argue that perhaps we should not have tried to float the currency so quick. And that it is possible that there was insufficient information in the hands of policymakers at the time they floated. Because we were not in a position to defend the currency at that time, at all.
Looking at our reserves.
Looking at our net reserves, which Goldman Sachs later confirmed was about $3 billion, which was abysmally low for the size of the Nigerian economy and for a floating currency. The central bank had absolutely no capacity to defend. Over time, it appears some capacity is returning as we continue to sell oil. We're increasing production. We did the $3 billion Afro-Exim transaction, so all of those you can see. And then now, then we had this backlog of forward contracts and airline debts, which the central bank now says
it's been settled.
It has settled. There's some controversy,
of course, around it
between them and the airlines.
Verified claims, exactly. According to them.
So it's evident that the central bank has excluded some forward contracts, probably to the value of $2 billion plus, as the governor said, and may also have excluded some of the airline claims. I don't think the central bank has completely articulated the story here, the backstory here. But it probably feels that there were no contracts in place and expects the airlines to go and buy FX at the current rate. And the airlines are trying to. That's my reading of it, but I think one of the tactics I have complained about, which has also improved in recent weeks, is communication. Policy communication out of the central bank. In the early days of this governance has not been at its best. It's improving, but I still think it can be better. That's one. So one issue, timing of the flotation, we could have probably calibrated that better, and then policy communication. I think for me, those were the two main things. But by and large, as we begin to see, you know, the point I always made is where is equilibrium? We don't know where it is. But are we beginning to move towards an equilibrium? I suspect so. Where will the equilibrium rest? It's not yet clear. But Goldman Sachs wrote a piece recently in the last 2 weeks in which they said the forecast that they saw the Naira appreciating over the next year to 1,200 to the dollar. Is that a hint of where equilibrium lies? That's their opinion. There are many who think it should be better. I have also made the point that I can't find a logical reason. Look at our economy at 2 points. On May 29, 2023, yes, when President Buhari was leaving, our official exchange rate was 450, the black market was 750. On that day, we had all of this backlog of FX contracts. Yes. Oh, no. We had subsidy. We had an exchange gap of 300 between the parallel and the official. Fast forward till today, according to the CBN, we have cleared the backlogs. We certainly have improved policy. We've floated the currency. We've tried to eliminate the subsidy, but our exchange rate volatility has continued to challenge that. We're certainly in a better macroeconomic position now than we were at that point. Portfolio flows are returning, remittances are rising again. We have a rational foreign exchange market. I don't see why our exchange rate should be worse now than then, except for speculation, which means I see the currency appreciating.
A minute now, I think we have some live pictures from Kaduna State. Okay, now the schoolgirls there, the Kuriga schoolgirls have arrived. School children have arrived Kaduna State Government House. Yes, of course, to see the governor and other government officials. The live pictures there from Kaduna Government House. The Kuriga school children. Live pictures for you there from the Kaduna State Government House. All right, there. That takes me to my next question, and in that same write-up, insecurity has actually affected production, affected agriculture, and all of that. How do you see this impacting, moving on inflation and all figures expected?
Clearly, insecurity has become a factor in Nigeria's economic challenges. Like you said correctly, it directly impacts food production.
Can't go to farms.
And it's not in one region of the country or not. In the southwest, there are parts of the southwest in which people are afraid to farm, particularly in Oyo, parts of Ogun, near the Yewa area and all of that. So it's in the southeast, we've seen cases in Edo State, in Delta State, where farmers have had challenges. In some parts, I read about farmers in Delta State paying some levy to the... So it's clearly impacting food production, which is showing in food prices and food inflation. Beyond that, it affects investor perceptions of safety and therefore and conducive investment climate, as at least in several parts of the country. Investors in Lagos or Abuja or Ogun State may not worry too much about, but clearly any potential investment in the northwest, northeast, north central will consider the state of insecurity, and indeed in the southeast as well, where there is IPOB and all of that. So I think I made the point the last time I came here that it's not just about the central bank and the Minister of Finance. It's about every part of government working to create a better climate for investors.
It's a real big one, because going back again to President Bola Tinubu's moves at, of course, cushioning, addressing some of this cry. We hear everybody, social media and everywhere. And the president has come out to say no traveling, public funded travelings and all of that. These are ways to cut costs. I don't know how that comes to you. At the time, there was also a figure that a number of aides would go with the minister and government officials, all trying to work that out.
I think the way I see it is that we lost control of things.
Yes, we did.
At a point, not just the economy, not just the exchange rate, not just the cost of governance, not just the perceptions of the citizenry about government and how they were spending our money. We lost control of all of that. And now there's a conscious attempt to put things back under control. I think many Nigerians are still concerned about government spending, but there'll be some traction from the president. Since the first order around the size of travel, now there's a ban on foreign travels without presidential approval. And those are good signals. You see, economic reform is not just an economic matter. It's not just a technocratic policy issue. It requires the support of the citizenry. And if you require the support of the citizenry, you'd better persuade them that while you're asking us to take pains and that it's going to be difficult, that they see some effort on the side of government to also control itself. So these are positive signals, and the president must be commended for them.
Interesting. What about the investments that we expect? The president has gone around, and we expect these monies to come in, the billions of dollars. They are not coming in. Are they sitting on the fence?
I think so. And you may be, quite frankly, investors don't rush in. Portfolio flows have started coming again. We've seen some evidence that the CBN, Omo auctions, all of those things, investors are beginning to return to Nigeria. But foreign direct investor who's going to build a factory is going to watch a little bit. He's going to look for stability in the exchange rate, which he didn't have, which is now beginning to be a possibility. I think we may be reaching the turning point, but investment dollars may still be another 6 months or 1 year down the line. That's my personal.
Do you think that it will be right for government to peg the FX rate again, like we used to have before now?
It will be unwise. And I think now there was a risk of that happening when things appear to be out of control.
Yes.
But I think things are now, I think we're probably past that risk now. I think that the CBN in particular has been more assertive, more proactive, is in charge of the game. He was watching the market before now. But in the last 2 months, you've seen the central bank take control. You've seen action from government against the Binance people. You've seen the Bureau de change sector reform. You've seen, of course, a lot of efforts to curtail liquidity from the central bank. So the CBN is now, I think we may say, that they're in charge of the game. They're not allowing the market to just bamboozle it. They're taking control. And it's showing, and I think it is working. But it also helps that the fundamentals are improving. So they are clearing the debt, they are clearing the backlog, they are clearing so the fundamentals are improving. The government is increasing oil production, and that's impacting the revenues, and they are also growing the reserves, which we saw go back to $34 billion, first time in a long time. So it's a combination of the fundamentals are improving. The central bank is more proactive and more assertive. It's communicating better, but like I said, I still think it needs to communicate even better. And so the exchange rate is reflecting both the changing fundamentals and the changing signals. The international community has also taken very well to the CBN's monetary policy.
Yes.
They regard it as the return to conventional policy thinking. I think the what did we used to call those things? Not unconventional, the
unorthodox?
Unorthodox policies really discomfited the international markets. And so now they think they understand, they're more familiar with the kind of environment that is emerging, and therefore they're responding positively to it. So you would see a lot of more positive reviews of policy in Nigeria in the international media and financial circles.
Almost finally, we talk very much about government, and also in that your report, it was there, federal government, sorry. The state government, just last week, I think for the month of August, 1.2 trillion naira was shared. This is unprecedented, never used to happen like this. Are they really doing what needs to be done? I stand to be corrected. The likes of Governor Zulum, you see him everywhere. The likes of the Lagos State governor, few governors. But what more can be done so that they can help complement whatever the federal government is doing on the other side?
Well, that was one of my concerns.
Yeah.
That we allowed the state governments to get away. We got to a point where governors who were in which state they were capturing people, or in which people were hungry and doing demonstrations, were warning the president that there is a risk of... What are you governor for? You deal with it. You deal with what have you done with the enhanced resources that were coming to you? I think the president and his team, and then the citizenry, generally began to put more pressure on the governors. There have been some improvements subsequently, but I don't think that that's what I think we need a structure, a system, a mechanism for monitoring where funds are going. If the governments are not able to provide that mechanism, I challenge civil society, people that are already in that space, budget, all of them.
True, likes of Serap and all of them.
Yeah, true. To begin to determine, this state got published monthly, this is what they got. What have they done with it? We have no evidence of the spending. Okay, yes, they increased some palliatives. It's not just that. Yeah. It's the structure of building investments for the future of your state that will endure, that will alleviate the poverty of your people, that will give them the capacity to be competitive in an emerging global knowledge economy. Those are the kind of structural mechanisms we need for monitoring the government. Otherwise, we're going to have 4 years gone of enhanced resources and then nothing to show.
In all of this, what's your outlook?
I think the outlook is improving. We saw GDP growth in the fourth quarter of 3.54. We think that Q1 may suffer from all the volatility we've had in Q1, but I think that we're beginning to be close to better. And Q1 is January to March. But I think that I'm a little bit more confident of the outlook. The way the FX and inflation was going demoralized all of us. It was beginning to become a big crisis.
True.
But I think the outlook is settling down. And I retain my view that we'll have higher GDP in 2024. Wow. The government's main challenge now is to get inflation down and to stabilize the exchange rate.
I will hope to have you in to assess all of this.
I will always be here. I enjoy the conversation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kwame Agbaje. Interesting to have you. See you, RCC Advisory. Do enjoy your day and your week. Have a great one.